Ang katotohanan sa Marcos at Tallano Wealth. Isang article mula sa isang Facebook page ni Kuya Pio na pinamagatang Marcos and Tallano Wealth makes the Philippines the richest country in the world. The controversial Marcos gold is indeed real. This is the Marcos wealth that some politicians kept on saying is the ill-gotten Marcos wealth. But what is the real story about the controversial gold owned by the Marcos family and the Tallano clan, who were dubbed as the real owner of the Philippines? This is the history ng Marcos and Tallano gold. During the year 1866 to 1898, Prince Julian MacLeod Tallano, the alleged title holder of OCT 10-4 in 1864 Original Certificate of Title 01-4 Protocol. The number 01 refers to the one nation known in pre-Hispanic times as Maharlika. The number 4 refers to the original 4 regions of this nation. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Palawan has been frequenting the Vatican. In 1934, under Pope Pius XII, the Vatican negotiated with a member of the Filipino royal family, the Christian Tallano clan of the well-known Maharlika. An agreement was reached that 640,000 metric tons of the Tallano gold would be lent to the Pope. This was part of that gold accumulated by the Southeast Asian Srivijayan Majapahit Empire during its glorious reign of 900 years. In 1939, two members of the Tallano family and Roman Catholic priest Father Jose Antonio Diaz brought the gold from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah to the Vatican. After bringing the tons of gold, Father Jose Antonio Diaz went back to Maharlika or the Philippines and resided in Cabanatuan City, Nueva Ecija. After the destructive World War II, Father Diaz facilitated the safe return of the 640,000 metric tons of gold from the Vatican to the Maharlika or Philippines. Former Congressman Manuel Acuna Rojas, the relative of the Acuna Tajian Taliano clan, and Bishop Enrique Sobrepana Sr. received the gold in Manila in the presence of Attorney Lorenzo Tanyada, who later became a senator of the Republic. During the return of the controversial Tallano Gold Clan, or Tallano Clan Gold, the young lawyer attorney Ferdinand E. Marcos was involved. Certainly, by all accounts, it was Ferdinand Marcos and Father Diaz who were the two persons who shared in the enormous 30% commission. That is 192,000 tons of gold worth around $4 trillion during the year 2006 for handling the transaction. No truth that the Marcos wealth was ill-gotten. According to a lease agreement made between the Tallano clan and the Maharlika government, a total of 640,000 metric tons of gold was deposited in the newly installed Central Bank of the Maharlika to comply with its requirement for gold reserve. Under the terms of the contract, the Central Bank of the Philippines became the holder of that gold. The lease agreement between the Tallano clan and the Philippine government expired during the year 2005. The Tallano Foundation has given notice of the termination of this 50-year lease following the additional 5-year discretionary period on December 31, 2005, but remains unable to obtain an inventory of this asset even though the central bank, now Bangko Sentral Pilipinas, is no longer entitled to hold the gold. Having gained the trust and confidence of Father Diaz, the Tallano clan made him the main negotiator and trustee of their gold. Father Diaz in turn hired the services of attorney Ferdinand E. Marcos, then a recommended brilliant young lawyer, having attained notoriety when he successfully defended himself in the Nalundasan case in 1939. The Tallano clan paid commission to Father Diaz and attorney Marcos in gold 30% from the principal of 640,000 metric tons. In 1949, the two richest men in the world were Father Jose Antonio Diaz and attorney Ferdinand E. Marcos. Between the two of them, they legitimately earned and owned 192,000 metric tons of gold from Tallano clan and Maharlika government. Ferdinand Marcos withdrew their share of the gold from the central bank and minted it RP-CB. Sometime later, Father Diaz and Marcos brought their gold to Switzerland in the Swiss Bank Corporation in Zurich. The remaining 400,000 metric tons of Tallano gold, Prince Lakan Acuna Macleod Tallano, the son of Raja Sulaiman Tajian and grandson of Maharaja Luisong Tajian, is in the third floor basement of the Central Bank minting plant in East Avenue, Quezon City. There are 950,000 metric tons of gold declared missing in the International Court of Justice, picked up by Yamashita from its European ally Hitler. Unexplained losses for the controversial Tallano and Maharlika gold. The Tajian Tallano gold started at 720,000 tons. 640,000 tons were transported to the Vatican and back, leaving 80,000 tons unaccounted from the outset. Out of 640,000 tons, 192,000 tons were paid in commission, which should be leave 448,000 tons, but somehow that number has become 400,000 tons, leaving another 48,000 tons unaccounted. Following this story, there are 128,000 or 80,000 plus 48,000 tons of gold which somehow slipped through the cracks in addition to 192,000 earned in commission, whereabouts unknown. Oops. Out of the remaining 400,000 tons, we do not know how much remains. We know there was an effort to do a major disappearing act when the old central bank morphed into the new Banco Central Pilipinas, but a recent decision of the Supreme Court, Banco Filipino versus BSP, has upheld that the BSP is responsible for the liabilities of the old central bank. The point is that ultimately a complete accounting should show where all of the original 720,000 tons went, not to mention estimated 1.2 million tons of Yamashita treasure, combined German and Japanese plunder identified above, that is very nearly 2 million tons of gold worth more than $38 trillion at today's price. The phony CIA-backed EDSA People Power exhibition of 1986 had one primary purpose, and that was to take this vast quantity of gold from the Philippines and the Filipino people for the benefit of the international banking cartel to enslave mankind. What about Father Diaz's commission shared with Ferdinand Marcos? When Father Jose Antonio Diaz died in 1974, all the 30% commission in gold became the legendary Marcos Gold. After providing for his family in Marcos' letter of instruction, the whole wealth derived from this was supposed to be given to the Filipino people. This was the Marcos wealth that some politician and churchmen kept on saying was the ill-gotten Marcos wealth. Why this wealth has been labeled ill-gotten a little further along in our study, that until today is in Marcos' secret accounts. On April 9, 1973, Marcos said, "My earthly goods have been placed in the custody and for the disposition of the Marcos Foundation dedicated to the welfare of the Filipino people." In his grand plan, Marcos wanted to re-establish the former grandeur of Maharlika and the whole region of Southeast Asia, the former Malayan Empire. In June 1983, Marcos appeared before the first world leaders in Toronto. He announced his plan to boost economy of the Southeast Asia region by creating Asian dollar. This would be backed up by the 400,000 metric tons of gold in central bank. The Asian dollar backed up by the two-thirds of all gold in the world that was in the Maharlika would made the Maharlika money more valuable and stronger than the American dollar. This was his vision to raise Southeast Asia to be par with the rest of the first world countries. There is plenty of solid evidence of a program Marcos worked on with American President Ronald Reagan, which referred to as the ABL or Ang Bagong Lipunan program. Under this program, some 250,000 sets of gold, documentation, and related ABL currency were to be shipped to various countries around the world. What became of the remaining 400,000 metric tons pertaining to the Taggian Tallano clan, and where is it today? To this day, the 400,000 metric tons of gold are still in the central bank in East Avenue, Quezon City. Nobody can move it because Marcos insured it with the Lloyds of London and its agents are guarding it. But the present government does not acknowledge its existence. Not only have successive governments of the Philippines failed to acknowledge the existence of the gold, they have conspired to keep this information from being known to the Filipino people. We assume this is because they have been working at ways to convert the gold for their own selfish gain, probably in conspiracy with the international banking cartel. Immediately after Ferdinand Marcos was removed from the office by a US military helicopter, the newly installed President Corazon Aquino formed the PCGG, Presidential Commission on Good Government, purportedly to go after the Marcos ill-gotten wealth. It was very important to the conspirators that this wealth should be labeled ill-gotten, even though, as has already been shown, Mr. Marcos was in his own right the wealthiest man on the face of the earth and had absolutely no need to take anything from anyone. A decision of the Federal Supreme Court of Switzerland dated December 21, 1990 said, by decision of May 21, 1986, the Attorney General of District of Zurich accepted in principle to the legal assistance requested by the Philippines and invited all the banks of the city of Zurich to freeze immediately all the accounts, deposits, or safes of the person, companies, or foundations of Marcos in the order. The accounts were frozen at the request of the government of the Philippines, and the PCGG has ensured they have remained frozen to this day. This is all a grand scheme or scam. Blinded Filipinos must keep repeating that Marcos was a thief or a magnanakaw so that those hundreds of billions of dollars of Marcos money will remain frozen and not be given to them for their use. Subsequently, they must constantly borrow money from International Monetary Fund and the World Bank with so much interest so that this country will remain a slave and shackled to the foreign powers. History will show that the money was not stashed away and inaccessible but available to truly deserving Filipinos. There was nothing secret about Marcos accounts. These accounts were only made secret by some people in the government so that the public would not know its real story. Gold for gold, dollar for dollar, this country, the Maharlika, is the richest country in the world. During a talk show in US TV the week following the bombing of the New York Twin Towers, President Bush was asked this question: which is the richest country in the world today? With a smile, he said, the Philippines. Marcos knew it, but he could not talk. At the time, they made sure that Marcos would no longer talk. After kidnapping him from Malacanang, they put him in a golden prison in Hawaii. Okay, so let's and okay, so there are really a lot of things to be laughed after reading that article. Andyan sa published and uh, shall we say, very reliable sources ang katotohanan. The one that you have read earlier, certainly not true. As a matter of fact, just today, or was it yesterday? Bongbong Marcos was asked. Yeah, I think that was yesterday or last night. He was asked, is the Tallano gold, the Marcos gold, true? And he said, no, it's not true. Now I rest my case.